Welcome back to a brand new episode of Your Wealth and Beyond. I'm your host, Andrew Raffel, and today we've got a special guest in the house to talk all things content marketing, building out your story, and utilizing AI to help make it a lot easier. Dan Curran, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Amazing. Nice to see you and speak with you.
I'm very excited for today's episode. In the past, we've actually, I've written 2 books, and I'm a big believer in building a story to help promote your brand and, making it in a manner where it's personal. So love to hear today some of the things that you've been working on and some of the evolution that we've seen with technology and content marketing. So thanks for joining us. Your background then, this journey you've been on, has content marketing in general, has that been your passion since you started working in the professional field?
Yeah, about a decade or more, in almost exclusively in content. And actually, I got my roots with working with large financial institutions, especially around the advisor space. So compliance around content, working with what we call dense content or technical content, even if it's for consumer, has always been my focus. Maybe not the sexiest part of marketing and advertising, but I've always loved the editorial process around blogs, white papers, ebooks. So for a decade plus, working with editorial teams on the content process. So yeah, deep experience with that.
And things have definitely changed over the last decade, which we'll definitely dig into. But for a lot of the listeners, a lot of the viewers, they're entrepreneurs, they're business owners. They may have just started their company, or they may have a mature company. But let's first dig into why is it so important to build a brand around personal storytelling, and also that content marketing that is specific for their avatar client. What are some of those things that maybe businesses don't fully understand on the power of that, and how that can be so beneficial to weed through as we look at this space we're in now, where it's just everything's convoluted. People are getting no attention spans, and they're getting bombarded with information. So how can we do this to separate ourselves? What are some of your thoughts there?
Well, as they say, I've seen a few things. That this content marketing, so to speak, has evolved, I guess. I don't even know if that's the right word. It's a very chaotic, non-linear world, right? This last couple of years, last couple of decades, and especially the last couple of years. So, is content still important? Yes. I think for most businesses, and this is somewhat of a blanket statement, personal relationships trump everything, right? Trust and eye contact and all those things. But when you can't be there and you need to have a presence without you physically being somewhere, content is more important. There's a lot of advice and a lot of, charlatans and a lot of very wise people out there that can provide a point of view. I think what everyone would agree to is that if it is authentic and personal, that's probably trumps everything else, right? And that, will make itself to the conversation around books. But as you go to, LinkedIn, I was listening to one of your previous episodes, it's a powerful platform, but it's very crowded. And I think we all are a magnet to authentic content that resonates. So probably the more you, that's going to be a general rule. As far as the tactical ways, the times of day, word count, tone and tenor, that's a different conversation. But I don't think it really goes anywhere unless your unique wisdom is on display.
And that authentic persona that you mentioned that is so important. What are, I think a lot of times people are afraid to be authentic. They're afraid of what, are they going to show their true self, and what are they going to think if I'm authentic? And so how do we get past that fear of maybe in people's minds that they think people are going to judge them?
Well, whether you're, young in the business world or a grizzly old, CEO or founder, everyone, it's interesting that you say that, because even this week, I was talking to a very accomplished author, would-be author, has unique wisdom, and she had, imposter syndrome, no doubt. And I'm turning into Oprah, and I'm not really qualified to, I'm just trying to be a good friend and share about our business model, but that's not the first time. So I think it's more psychological. It's just, beaten into all of us, stand in line, follow the status quo. And I think we all voyeuristically appreciate when we see someone that's, AI didn't write it, they're just throwing up their thoughts. And I'm not answering your question because it involves ego and, a lot of other impediments, that came up, that are in someone's way. But you have a cheerleader in me, anyone listening to this, that just be yourself. There's as long as you're not vulgar or insensitive, people are generally forgiving. And I've had some experience, certainly with clients and a few times with me, and I'm no different. You don't want any pushback. You don't want to sound dumb. You don't want to have anyone say anything that's not nice. But it's big boy pants.
Yeah.
That's just the life we live in. Or you can be in the shadows. But then if your default position is just cranking out, generic wisdom, I think it has a dopamine effect a bit, but it's not as good as being you, right?
And that's what we've seen before we jump into, publishing books and how you're using AI and what, chapters IO is doing. I've seen just from even personal or just seeing what's out there, like what works is when somebody's not, they don't have to shoot a video to provide their wisdom in like a beautiful studio. The ones that work the best are sometimes somebody's on a hike and they've got an idea in their head that they want to position out to their network, and maybe 3 minutes. But those are the type of videos that unprofessional, it's off the cuff, meaningful, to the point, that we've seen that drives better, traffic to comments and things of that nature. Would you see that's accurate too, where it doesn't have to be this whole thought out thing of I've got to come up with it. It's got to be so professional and so forth?
Yeah, I think overproduced is generally doesn't work, and I would say it's universal on LinkedIn and TikTok. I don't have numbers behind that, but I can't imagine that not being true. I mean, as a TikTok consumer myself, the man or woman with a cell phone who's got a unique perspective just captures my heart. That's who I want to listen to. So as you're scrolling through and you see something produced, well, but I'm just my demographic. But yeah, 100% I agree.
So on that note, so you're a TikTok guy. I think a lot of individuals in their 40s and 50s, they've maybe been a little hesitant on that. So what's your expert thoughts on that? Is that the place that people need to be?
No one's asked me that question, so thank you for asking. And by no means, I'm speaking more as a consumer, but with definitely a prejudice of marketing and so forth. I think it's amazing. That's what I think of TikTok. I think what's not amazing is you can't get your algorithm to give you just what you want. So yeah, do I want, the Bama Rush showing up on my feed, when my family's around? No, and I'm not interested in it. But 99% of everything I receive is really quality about history, about genealogy, or about whatever you're interested in, fishing, fly fishing, whatever. There's so much content, quality content, and I don't like it. I love it, to be honest with you. Now, like anything else, alcohol to golf to whatever, you just don't overindulge too much and temper your time. But, I'll pontificate a little bit. One, I get a chuckle on when people say traditional media, or what's the other term? Just, whatever, tradition. Like, if you look at the numbers that TikTok has or Facebook, it's so dwarfs anything you see on traditional news media and so forth. So I think they're traditional. I think TikTok's so, it is what it is, and it'll evolve. And like anything, moderation is probably best, but I think it's great.
Yeah, we've definitely, they were talking TikTok's going to be, either have to be sold or taken down. It seems like here in the mid 2024 that's kind of died down a little bit, but definitely, somewhat of still a fear that's out there with the unknown of what the politicians and Congress is going to do. But I can't see them from my side just taking it away, but, maybe put in the hands of, what they had talked about of selling it or a piece of it here, because that is.
If there's some if there's some mischievous activity going on, no one wants that. No one wants to, I think the broader issue, we'll save it for another, and, I have children, is just the overall consumption of social, it's probably not a great thing. So I'm talking out both sides of my mouth, but it is what it is. But if I'm going to learn something, I tend to turn that TikTok on versus or other sources before I go to the news. So.
Yeah, definitely on that end. So, when we look back at, for us, we believe in, social media and presenting out who we are, not just the expertise we have here at Baintree Wealth Advisors, but the personalities of the people here, making us real. We're real people, right? And I think that's some of the power that we didn't have when I got in the industry, when you got in the industry in, late 90s, early 2000s. We didn't have that capability. So, it's endless opportunity that's out there. But one of the things that I looked at when first writing my first book years ago, back in like 2014, Climbing the Retirement Mountain, it was a slog. We had a ghostwriter that we worked with that, helped me and my co-author, but it took a long time. And I think that's one of the detriments of how it used to be, where I've got this expertise, I need to get it out to the people, but I just don't have the time, the wherewithal. Maybe it was a lot more expensive than it is in today's world, and that limited a lot of people. But, for us, and this just holds true to no matter how you're getting it out there, is helping to persuade, building that celebrity type status, presenting out the expertise that we all have, spending those thousands and thousands of hours, whatever field we're in, being able to extrapolate that out in a manner that is readable and digestible. And so for us, that was a big piece of helping, grow our business. You have looked at that. Obviously, you see the power of that. You wouldn't have started chapters.io if that wasn't the case. But what have you seen then, and how have you been connecting this change in the artificial intelligence to make things easier, to go from thought, goal, wish, to getting it out there in the hands of people?
Well, you used a great word in slog, because it is a slog. I started my book, a year and a half ago, and it was kind of a little bit longer than that, but that was part of the impetus of starting chapters. It's a slog. And for some people, I went to school for it, and some people are just, just amazing writers, and it flows from they have the fine motor skills to write it or type it. And for those 1%, no sweat. They figure it out, and then they get experts to help them. And there's been an infrastructure there for decades and decades, and really, really smart hybrid publishing people, if you want to self-publish or some of these big publishing companies. So that slog, though, for that 1% doesn't exist, but it exists for the 99% of the rest of us. And so take a step back. In November 30th of 2022 is when OpenAI launched ChatGPT, and there's no user manual. It just kind of came out. And you got to go back to 2023, and just all this frothiness and hype still exists today. And at that time, the company, before I exited, we created a lot of content. I had hundreds of writers, 1099 writers, full-time editors, And I thought, wow, this is going to be something. I don't know what it is, but this is probably not good, but I didn't know. And the reason why we quickly tempered our concern, not that there wasn't a lot of concern that remained, is that editorial rigor, plagiarism, attribution is just non-negotiable. If you start with that as a baseline, it just, okay, we can do anything else, but it has to be accurate. And even to check for accuracy takes time. So now with ChatGPT, it wasn't a workflow solution. It wasn't, yes, eventually for headlines and organization. It definitely, okay, well, that's cool. Or ideas and so forth. But for real dense writing, 2,000 words to 10,000, 20,000 words plus, there was no plus in it, as far as real, unique perspective. So as we went through 2023, okay, well, it's still going to be something, and it's only going to get better. And when we were starting to germinate with Chapters IO, we thought, okay, editorial integrity, pleasure, okay, those are the ground rules. We can't touch those. Why don't we reverse engineer and just look at it a totally different way, and really as an assistant and as a workflow? So I'll just jump to what we do real quick. We've really created a receptacle, like a cup that I'm holding up here, and we're putting, in addition to Word or Google Doc, we're putting all of your thoughts and wisdom and life experiences into that cup, this personal large language model. It doesn't know the rest of the world. It just knows what we're putting into it. And our gift to humanity, and there'll probably be others, but is that we've spent 1,000 hours plus training it to help organize your wisdom, thoughts, life experiences into a book. So that rest of us, that 99%, not that there will be 99, but maybe another percent or 5%, can finally have the freedom to just let go of their thoughts. And we have a user interface, video, audio, they can even write it, but they can just be free. And so that's what we're filling up, is that vessel, that we're organizing it, and we're actually finding, and then we have gap analysis. So we're saying, well, how we've trained it says, great, this is a great story, but there are some gaps. Here are 10 questions. In addition, we have an editor assigned, and they're also looking for gaps. And the process just moves 5x faster. It's a lot less expensive than working with a ghostwriter. And I'll just hit pause here to say that A-plus ghostwriters are going to be busy and they're wonderful, but ghostwriters is a really odd relationship. It's like a forced marriage, and writing a book, you're already tense. Are you going to be transparent, authentic with that ghostwriter? Are they the right person? And then you're dating for, weeks and months. So we felt like, yes, a human is insanely important, but it's more of an editor, more of a developmental editor. So that's what we're doing. We're just filling up that vessel and accelerating the process, but doing it on the front end and letting you just be you by speaking into our interface.
So you've created a framework for somebody to follow with regards to, here's my ideas, but there's a framework of how to get them to dig deeper into not just their expertise, but their why. Why do they get up every day? Why do they want to get this information out? And then, so this learning, so you have that, which is great. And then you've got, have you utilized, is it ChatGPT that you've utilized to build your own language model? Or how have you then, this 1,000 hours that you've spent to build it to make it make sense for your business model? What is that, without getting into the weeds? Because I know a lot of people just know enough about AI, but for me, I use ChatGPT and Gemini, et cetera. Some of the other things we're looking at leaning into, but how did you guys, deconstruct that and integrate it together with to have it make sense for what you're doing?
Yeah, so some of the vocabulary and nomenclature is different. So, if I say something that maybe a developer, Python developer, if I get it wrong, I'm just trying to be somewhat generic here. But OpenAI, for instance, has their OpenAI playground. So they make folks like us have easy access to the back end, for lack of a better term. But we use multiple, models, large language model, these native large language models. and it's like a cake recipe. You're constantly playing around with it. And really the key word is training. So you're meticulously training it on a story arc of a how-to book or a memoir. We've trained it to alert to any repetition, that you may have. We've trained it to ask questions. So it's purely an assistant. The most complicated part of it is kind of what I'm talking about now. For the user, once they come on board chapters, it's just a series over 6 to 8 weeks of being asked questions. So an interface, and then from in between meeting with the editor to go through it. So we've just, our purpose is to have you just vomit up, for lack of other term, every thought you have. Usually people come to us, again, they've been intimidated by traditional publishing. They're not a writer, they're short on time, but they really have something to say. And what we've learned is to front end it all, get all of those thoughts, get them out, put them in the receptacle, because AI is just thirsty for text. Put it all in there, and then our training organized it. And then really quick, within a week, you get this very robust outline. Within a few weeks, you get 10,000 words, 20,000 words. And that's just the first few weeks. Then we have, going on 4 to 8 additional weeks, or longer if you want time, to really massage it. And the editor's there to find the real genius, to find if there's any hidden genius or any magic. But all the words are yours. It's your words or suggestions, adjective, noun suggestions, but it's authentically you. And I believe a lot, I don't want to say more ethical than a ghostwriter, but it's not a ghostwriter. It's your thoughts. Right. And the editor and all that process and fact checking, still human.
Right. So you're humanizing it with the editor. And that's, I think you hit on some points there where a lot of people, they dabble with OpenAI or Gemini or some of these other ones, and they just don't really use the right prompts and be able to dig into and harness and leverage the power of it. So it sounds like that's part of what you're doing is you've gone in and you're continually updating and making it better and better, but getting those prompts so that AI, the technology can really go to work and shine, but then the humanizing of it with the editor obviously makes the editor's job a lot easier than having to start from scratch. But I think that intersection there, that sounds like a beautiful match to actually because a lot of people are just taking their ideas, this overall prompt, and then creating a blog. And you and I can, and most people can probably tell this was not written by a human, and it's right. It's just words.
And I think the marketplace, some people said, well, do we need more books or whatever? I think it's kind of a snobby remark. Like, I think everyone should be able to share their story. I think the marketplace will determine, that's not my job. In marketplace, if you want to sell it and be a bestseller, well, that's let's go. And then the world will tell you. But I'll give you a quick story. So we have a client, an author about to publish, almost finished with their manuscript, is a person of science, very accomplished, wealthy, checked all the boxes, but has had a lot of childhood trauma and is plagued by some mental illness issues. So it's a very amazing story. Only he could tell it. But he felt more comfortable telling it through chapters than a ghostwriter, let's say. But that's the real magic, is that during a second or third conversation with the editor, this author happened to mention that he liked comedy, and he actually did improv and some stand-up in college years ago. Just a throwaway term, he was talking about. Thought, and the editor goes, whoa, tell me more about that. So the book was authentic to that point, but it was missing this true authenticity, I guess. It had it at one level. So that's just one story, how humans just are amazing, and how it really helps out. It's just the 1% haven't figured out they can share their thoughts on paper, on a keyboard. But there's people like this gentleman that, just absolutely, thank goodness his story will be out there.
Yeah, no, again, another good point there is that for a lot of people if they have an editor or ghostwriter, and they're not going to be their true self. So for this individual and for a lot, it's probably cathartic, it's therapeutic, and it allows them to not, have that ego, minimize some of the what's actually inside,
Yeah.
and then being able to then have the editor to figure out that this is actually some gold in here. We got to dig into it.
Yeah. And I just, again, it's just one person's opinion, but to your audience, a lot of writers are editors and a lot of editors are writers, but a really good editor is really an ombudsman and just really proficient at finding narratives and themes that might be hidden a bit. And also in our business, you can imagine everyone's nice and great, but there's some alpha male, female CEOs, financial advisors and so forth. So the editor can stand their ground and really push the buttons in a good way. So the editors is great.
You talked about self-publishing and or having a publisher and so forth. So once you get the manuscript done and it's gone through the process and we've got some good thoughts to paper there, what for the listener or the viewer, then what happens next? How do we get it into the hands of the people?
So when we came to tackle this, looked at this opportunity, we felt as a company, my partner John and myself felt like we could really help the manuscript writing process, that there seemed to be a cog there, friction there, and we're hyper focused on that. But if you look at a supply chain of any creative piece, we have to sell it, but you have an idea, you have a draft, you have editorial. We use editorial through technology and humans, and then you have distribution and marketing. So our focus right now is manuscript creation. So on the marketing and distribution, which we may eventually get into because there's a lot of improvement that can be made there, we elected to really go to the marketplace and really find a half dozen really good partners. And so how that looks, and again, my expertise is more in the editorial part, but how that looks is a spectrum. So you could take this manuscript when it's finished, if you're happy with it, and self-publish. And Amazon is just getting better and better every week. And I won't talk about the marketing, but just the distribution. Their UX and UI when you go to Amazon, book publishing is great. I mean, that's why there's thousands of romance novels and nonfiction books every day being uploaded, and they will really help you, and they'll help you print it. Now the printing is not the highest quality. I mean, it's good. It does a good job. They'll even, I believe, help with ebooks and audiobooks. So that's self-publishing. That's you doing it on your own. Then there's hybrid publishing, and there are a lot of different definitions, but there's dozens and dozens of companies that will say, give us a manuscript, you pay us X amount, and we will do the marketing, publishing. We'll work with help you with book cover design. We'll work with Amazon. Ingram Spark is also is kind of the other elephant in the room as far as book distribution to like local bookstores, etc. And they do all that for you. And that's really a growing category. And there's some really good companies that we've partnered with there. And then the last one is the Penguin, Random House, Simon and Schuster. Generally, you need an agent to help you get in the door, and that's just a totally different business model. Our clients that we have at Chapters are that entire spectrum. Some of them just want the book. Some of them have aspirations to be an Amazon, New York Times bestseller. So it's a spectrum, and it just depends on who the author is. But our editors and our team can help guide and help them, point them in the right direction.
Yeah, I think I was doing some research on you, and you had this quote, digitization of the supply chain. So that's, I think what you were just alluding to there is helping to make it as seamless as possible.
Yeah, and you've published before, so I'm sure something I said, probably resonated, probably sounded familiar to you, but there's a lot of people that will take your money on distribution and marketing. I'll just also throw in there, if you really have something to say and you really want a book and you really want to possibly speak or, use this to help your business and so forth, the work is going to be with you, with the author. There's no shortcuts. You can hire folks to do your social media and PR, but that's kind of an empty vessel after a while. And but the ones that really want to spread the gospel, so to speak, you've got a one reader at a time, building email lists, going out there and speaking and evangelizing the book.
And also I felt from the two books that I did, an important thing is trying to do the right cover graphic, and that was, because we just were visual creatures, and having the right cover, I think, is so important. Is that something that you guys also help to deliver for the client?
Yeah, we help introduce those people. So there's a lot of really talented people. What's great about us, if I can say, is that editor relationship. This person, we only engage and hire editors who have had multiple bestsellers under their belt. So if, we have some financial advisors we worked with, so they're familiar with, the context on what they've seen, how they would, the type of, in your case, like you said, book designer. We've had some financial advisors, which I think was a great strategy, just said, hey, my world is 1,000 people, 2,000, 3,000 max. I want the highest quality book printed. And I want to, if it takes off, it takes off. But, this is a lost leader for me. And so that's doesn't mean they're right or wrong. I think they're very right to do it that way.
Yeah, that's how I looked at it as, you could have done, I know people do pay per play to try to be this quote unquote best-selling author, right? And I think that there's some BS in that I won't get into. But for us, it was looking at it as a marketing funnel. And I get these small residual checks from Amazon every once in a while. Yeah. I don't even know if it's sometimes enough to, worth it to mail it. But, right. For us, it was getting it in the hands of our people, of our clients that trust us, and then getting them to get in the hands of people that they thought could benefit from maybe a chapter or two, and then also as a means to somebody who's looking at us as versus a competition, and it's a way to separate us from somebody else out there, just because it is something where there is subconscious. It's like, oh, there's an author, they put the time in, and that's how I think a lot of business owners should look at this. Just personal opinion on that is that don't try to be the best seller. It's use it for your, like you had mentioned, that 1,000 to 2,000, your fan club, your people, and get into their hands so that then they can provide it to other people that you probably want as your client. You got a platinum client, we call them, and we want more of them. So How do we do that? Let's distribute that out. So that was for us the thought process there in developing and spending the time and the money to get it out there. It wasn't so much to say that I'm a New York Times bestseller.
Right, and that's again another conversation. I think we're kindred spirits on that perspective, but there is still stature of having that darn book. And we wouldn't have gotten in this business if we didn't believe. And the market numbers, people are still reading, still publishing. There's still the perception that a softer hardbound book gives you stature and credibility. So again, if you have something interesting to say, it's relatively inexpensive. Even if you do it by yourself and write it yourself and go through Amazon, you'd be really surprised. It's just time.
And then you had mentioned earlier about audiobooks, and so we've never done that where we've taken the book and had either myself read it or hire a professional to do it. I'd love to know your thoughts on that. Is somebody who spends the time and goes through the process with you and it's got this beautiful book and great content, personal story, authentic, etc. Should they also be looking at either doing it themselves or hiring somebody to turn it into an audio book?
So great question. So again, it's a spectrum. So for that one archetype or persona that's going to do 3,000 books, and they're a financial advisor, maybe nationwide, but they're in Atlanta and their clients are in Atlanta or whatever type of business they're in, that option is really not that expensive, and I can elaborate on that in a second, but it's, if only a dozen people are going to really listen to it. I think that strategy, because there's only so many dollars and so much time in the day, generally tends to be someone who is, again, I'll use a fake financial advisor. Hey, I'm 25 years in this business. I'm noted. I have a great reputation. Yes, I'm going to do 3,000 books, but I would like to maybe this next chapter of my life be a paid speaker. I want to write for trade journals. And so I'm going to take it up a notch. And I am going to go after that Amazon bestseller, and I'm going to go through that system. If you're a little bit more aggressive, which there are a lot of people are, then I think, audiobook is a no-brainer. It's very simple. And that, we talk about technology. I think we'll all agree that the avatar, human AI, still a little creepy. It's getting better, and who knows what it'll be like in a couple of years. The voice technology is pretty darn impressive. So you don't have to sit there for 4 hours to talk now. You can go for 20 minutes, and then the machine can take it from there. Are there going to be some breathing or pace speaking issues that are not going to be you? Then yes, then you probably don't go that route and go, do it yourself. But it won't break the bank, but it's just more of time investment.
Now, you had also you mentioned you're working on your own book. What's your book about?
Well, I started in COVID, and 2 or 3 reasons why we started this business. One is that there's just that AI, ChatGPT in particular, came about, and we felt we could use it as this assistant. The other is that during the latter part of COVID, I just, you're at home a lot. So I started writing, and my background, journalism, et cetera, back many years ago, I just had that teacher a professor said, hey, don't worry about grammar. You can pay people to take care of that. Just write. Just be very uninhibited. So I've kind of always had that, and then I'm a pretty good editor, so then I go back and edit. So I just started writing, and, the book's about chaos. And I'll even go one step further. There's a show I just saw this sentence and I liked it, and I'll go quick here. It's chaos is a ladder. And I looked up who said it, and then I eventually watched the TV show, but it came from Game of Thrones. And the metaphor of chaos is a ladder is that while everyone is following the status quo, chaos can also be a ladder to success. It would be a vertical, horizontal, parallel. And so that's, that I just went back through my history, and it kind of was a glue to hold everything together. So my purpose for the book, and it's been a great, petri dish for when we were doing R&D for this company, is just for myself, for my kids. I don't do TikToks. I don't go speak because that's just not me. It's not, I have others. I like to write and do other things. So, I would just convey, man, can you imagine leaving 30, 40,000 words to your kids? I don't think they'll read it for about 10 years, but when they do, there's something there.
Yeah. No, that's great. Chaos, huh? I always thought you were talking about whether you love them or hate them. That's kind of like the success Trump had in creating chaos to create some success. I think about I have a daughter now that's 18, and she's probably not listening to any podcasts out of the 95 we have, but right. Down the road, I know my hope is, when I'm gone or something of that nature, that she's, able to then, go back and watch some YouTube videos of dad or listen to some of these podcasts that, there's definitely some great guests that brought some wonderful wisdom. So, being able for us to create that legacy, whether it's that or, the book that you're writing that, may not be for thousands of people to read it, but the ones that are most meaningful, and it's your passion and so forth on that end.
Yeah. And if you don't mind, I'll segue because it's an important component. We spoke about, and really when I talk about chapters, there'll be other people out there. So I feel like you should know that I've only told you half, and it attaches itself to what you just said. So I held up this cup and I talked about this vessel. Well, that vessel lives in perpetuity. Unlike a Word document or a Google Doc, it lives, I guess, in perpetuity, but it's not smart. It's not a smart document. So chapters, per the name, it's to capture chapters of your life, be it a legacy book for grandfather to, write a book or share a story, or grandmom share a story, or, a how-to book or big idea book like Simon Sinek and so forth. But for this case, let's say it's a legacy book or your book you're writing, my book that I'm writing. That vessel, you can go to it instantly, and after your book's written, and ask, hey, write 5 social media posts from chapter 3, and instantly it'll write that. Write a blog from chapter 8. Write my next book using chapter 12 as a foundation. Regarding a legacy book, so it's your book about your life, your grandfather's book, well, the son, Andrew, can then add to this vessel, and Andrew's children can add to that vessel. So AI, when people are talking about it plagiarizing and scary, it can also do something pretty magical. It can be kind of like a 23andMe of your life story. So if you think about it, yeah, it's out. If you forget the prolific writers, for most of us, your digital footprint is LinkedIn, some pithy thing you said on X or Twitter or Facebook, but that's it when the lights are turned out. So I think you'll see this, a living library is what we call something that could be pretty spectacular.
Yeah, I never thought about that as a component of your business model, but it makes so much sense because, so many times we hear of the, dad or mom died, and it's like that regret that, oh, I wish I would have known more about this time of their life. They all are people, they all have their stories, and sometimes we look at them as just mom and dad or grandma, grandpa. And, that's a lot of times that regret is like, oh, I wish I would have talked to him more about his time in the war and what his experiences were. So this is a much easier way than somebody just going in as the kid and trying to interview mom and dad. That's an interesting component there to this, to your business model that I never thought about. Very interesting.
Yeah. So we'll
love it. A couple of things, as this show's about leadership and, business owners and so forth. I see in the notes here that you were you the well, I hope Chat GPT didn't make this up, but no, you were one of the past president of Entrepreneurs Organization.
Yeah, in our local chapter. Were you a member?
So I'm the Arizona chapter. We have about, I think, like 225 members. We're one of the largest here in the country. It's been a great vessel for me in helping to be a better leader and learning from a lot of great people. So, what's your experience there with EO? How does that help you?
Yeah, so I'm still involved. We have something called Alumni, which is a few chapters have it. Ours is very active. EO actually started in St. Louis about 31, 32 years ago. A couple of YPO. It's called something different back then, but had some folks started. And so St. Louis is big history, not quite as big as yours, but I think we have 160 members or so. So very vibrant chapter. I was in for about 10 or 11 years, changed my life. I reluctantly went in. My ego, back in the day, it's like, screw that.
Yeah, give me your 5%. Let's go. Give it to me right now.
I went through all that. But what the output of all that is, I got to, it changed my life. I got to just meet fascinating people, a lot of friends, got to have a group that you're confident, the deal, it's confidential, conversations, experience sharing, got to meet the president a couple of times. There's a few presidents ago, not the couple that we're dealing with now. Landed on an aircraft carrier. I'm sure you have your experiences. There's all kinds of wonderful, life-changing experiences. My wife really appreciated what it did for me. So, and then somehow they elected me president of that chapter, and that was special in its own. As you know, it's managing other CEOs. So it's my analogy is inside cats and outside cats. Entrepreneurs are outside cats, try to act like inside cats, and I believe that wholeheartedly. And so it's to get harnessed people was really helped me grow just managing them on the board level. So
that's awesome. Yeah, definitely. EO, YPO, a great way for us to continue becoming better leaders and in helping provide more opportunity for our employees and beyond, and our clients, no matter what industry you're in.
Yeah.
The so as we kind of wind down, I know that the fear of technology and AI, we addressed a lot of that, but the simplicity of being able to get your story out there, being able to persuade, get that expertise on paper. What's your goal? What are we trying to, with chapters? Is there a set number of people you want to hit and be able to get their story out there over the next few years? Like, where do you see your company going as we close?
Yeah, so, AI or any technology is not something you just dabble in. It takes concerted effort. So to kind of have an EO moment, kind of confidential here between you and your audience, we looked at 2023 as training, 2024 still R&D, proof of concept. I've had some companies, had a lot of success in my life, but a few speed bumps and not perfecting, but getting the proof of concept to minimal viable product down. And because I've got a few years on me now, I've learned to really, really, really make sure that there's an audience, because there's a lot of, my partner and myself can agree with each other and invent a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. That can happen to everyone. So to quantify this a bit, we expect about 25 or 30 authors this year, which we're very, very proud of. And these are all people of stature, and some people have, not, they're maybe just someone that wanted to tell their story, but not professionally. But they're people that have a wonderful story to tell. So we're going to have these 25 or 30 titles out this year. And then I believe 2025 will be 10x growth that. So we're building it to scale. Again, just kind of insider speak here. The thing you grapple with is, as you know, is service business or tech business. And, of course you want to automate as much as you can, but you have to have humans in the loop, so to speak. And I'm not just talking about editorial, just project managers and all that. So that's a friction that we're working on right now, is getting that fine oiled machine, but not overstaffing, but not understaffing. And then also when we hire people and clients, we about 1 out of every 20 calls I get is still AI. They're not really reading the whole narrative of what we do, which I get it. People are in a hurry. They think it's plagiarism, they think it's all that, or they think it's scary. So we still have, we kind of think that'll take care of itself. We feel silly using the word AI because, we were the ones who used social media or digital ad agency, terms that, everyone's digital and everything's social. So this AI term will probably everything will have AI in it, right?
Yeah, it'll just become part of the landscape, which it already is.
Yeah,
fast approaching. So
high growth. We just this year is just still looking for additional authors and just working through that system, but doing it right, and then maybe a fundraising event next year. We'll see.
Yeah, and when you have the proof of concept of these happy authors that are getting out to their people, those will be good stories that chapters.io can use as the foundation for getting the message out there. So, this has been great. In the show notes, listeners, there'll obviously be a way that you can reach out to Dan and the team and to figure out, the process. And I know there's probably a lot of kicking the tires and just trying to figure out, I've got this, how do I get this out there, and learning about your process there. So, we'll have that in the notes. And then what other ways can people get a hold of you? Is it, obviously your TikTok or LinkedIn and some of the stuff that you're doing with the podcasts?
Yeah, I think if you just go to LinkedIn and Dan Curran with Chapters, in the search bar, dan@chapters.io is the email address. Chapters.io is the website, and it'll lead to me as well. So I think, easy to get a hold of me. And again, if anyone has any strong thoughts about the space, I love having those conversations. So please do not hesitate.
Yeah. And I, definitely vouch that having the books, and I kind of did it two different ways as we finish up here. Is the longer, laborious way, and then I used a concept called 90-minute book, which you may have heard of with Dean Jackson. So I feel like yours is now the next evolution of that, because that was more of getting it out there literally in the easiest fashion as possible, but it wasn't as, I think, dialed in as those would like. So we're being able to take that interview process and then taking the machines and helping to get out there, and then having the editor oversee it. But listeners, definitely, if you've got that passion inside, it's never been easier to get it out to the world. And so love what you're doing. Appreciate the time that you've spent today with us, and this bite size here. I know we could probably talk for another couple hours in marketing, because that's a big passion of me as well. So continue doing what you're doing, and we'll look to see some of the success over these next few years of helping to get people's mindsets into words and to the people. So thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it, Dan.
I'm grateful. Thank you.
And stay tuned for another episode of Your Wealth and Beyond later this month. Make sure, if you did enjoy this episode, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and pass it along to anybody that you find can find this as valuable information. Happy planning, everybody. We'll talk to you real soon. Thanks so much.